Picture this. You make the final mortgage payment, 30 years of work, the house is finally yours. Or so you think. Because every single year after that, the government still sends you a bill. And if you stop paying it, not the mortgage, not the bank, but the property tax, they can take your home. So let me ask you a simple question. Do you actually own your house? Or are you just renting it from the government? In 2025, that question is no longer theoretical. Right now, 5 U.S. states are openly talking about something that would have been unthinkable just a few years ago. Not tax relief, not caps, not exemptions. Total elimination, zero forever. Some are doing it to stop families from losing generational homes. Others are spending tens of billions of dollars to unwind a broken system. And one state already has the money sitting there waiting. This isn't about politics. It's about ownership, power, and what private property actually means in America. Stay with me because we're counting down the 5 states closest to ending property taxes for good. Subscribe if you want clear, no-fluff breakdowns of the money forces shaping your future. Number 5, Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania doesn't look like a crisis state. Rolling hills, quiet towns, stone farmhouses that have been in families for generations. But behind that postcard image is one of the darkest property tax realities in America. Every single year, around 10,000 Pennsylvanians lose their homes. Not because they failed to pay their mortgage, not because of foreclosure. Because they couldn't keep up with property taxes. Think about that for a moment. You can do everything right, pay off your house, work your entire life, pass it down to your kids, and still lose it to a tax bill that never stops coming. So why hasn't Pennsylvania fixed this? The answer is schools. Nearly half of all public school funding in the state comes from property taxes. One of the highest dependencies in the entire country. For decades, politicians have said the same thing. If we eliminate property taxes, schools collapse. That argument froze reform in place until now. In 2025, 2 lawmakers introduced a plan that doesn't trim property taxes. It doesn't cap them, it eliminates school property taxes entirely, forever. Instead of funding schools by taxing people's homes, the proposal shifts the burden across the broader economy, raising the sales tax slightly and adding a modest local income tax. The idea is simple, everyone pays a little, so homeowners aren't crushed by everything. Supporters argue this breaks the most dangerous feature of property taxes, the fact that one bad year can cost you your house. A job loss, a medical bill, a sudden expense, and suddenly you're on the list of those 10,000 families. Pennsylvania's fight isn't easy. It's politically risky and it challenges decades of tradition. But it's also the first state on this list to say something radical out loud. No one should lose their home just because they kept living in it. And that idea is spreading. Number 4, Texas. Texas loves to sell a simple story. No state income tax, business-friendly, affordable living. And for years, millions of Americans bought it, packing up from California, New York, and Illinois, chasing the Texas dream. Then they opened their first property tax bill. Here's the part most people don't realize. Texas has some of the highest property tax rates in the country. That's how the state funds almost everything: schools, roads, police, fire departments. When there's no income tax, the bill doesn't disappear. It just shows up somewhere else. In a modest home, many Texans are paying $6,000 to $8,000 every single year, forever. For new residents, it's often a shock. Some of them run the numbers after they move and realize they're paying just as much in taxes as before, just under a different label. But Texas didn't ignore the problem. In November 2025, voters overwhelmingly approved major property tax relief. Nearly 80% said yes. Homestead exemptions jumped sharply. Seniors and disabled homeowners got even bigger breaks. The average homeowner saved hundreds of dollars on top of what they'd already saved the year before. And the state didn't stop there. Texas has now spent $51 billion on property tax relief. That's not a typo. No state in U.S. history has ever put that much money toward lowering property taxes. But here's the catch. Relief is not elimination. Home values keep rising, assessments adjust upward. And no matter how much Texas cuts, homeowners are still writing checks every year. They're still technically renting their homes from the government. That's why the conversation in Texas has shifted. The governor has made his position clear. $51 billion wasn't enough. The next step is to put a bold question directly to voters. Should Texas eliminate school property taxes for homeowners entirely? Not cap them, not reduce them, eliminate them. Texas is playing the long game, building momentum, spending real money, testing how far voters are willing to go. And while Texas hasn't crossed the finish line yet, it's doing something crucial, proving that property taxes are no longer untouchable. Number 3, Florida. Florida is where this debate turns philosophical. Because in Florida, the argument isn't just about money. It's about what ownership actually means. The governor has said it out loud. If you buy a home, pay off the mortgage, and still have to send a check to the government every year just to stay there, do you really own it? That idea has reshaped the entire conversation in the state. Right now, Florida lawmakers are pushing one of the most aggressive property tax overhauls in the country. We're not talking about a single bill or a small pilot program. There are multiple constitutional amendments moving through the system, each aimed at cutting and ultimately eliminating property taxes for homeowners. The centerpiece is a proposal that would abolish all non-school property taxes on primary residences starting in 2027. Read that carefully. Fire districts, county levies, city taxes, gone for homestead properties. But Florida doesn't make this easy. To change the Constitution, voters don't just need a simple majority. They need 60% approval. That's a high bar. And it forces the state to confront the trade-offs head-on. Because property taxes account for more than 1/3 of Florida's state and local revenue. That money pays for services people rely on every day: police, fire departments, roads, and emergency response. Eliminate the tax too fast, and critics warn of massive budget holes almost overnight. And there's another twist. If property taxes disappear, home ownership becomes dramatically more attractive. Analysts project that home prices could jump sharply as demand increases. Great news if you already own. Much harder if you're a first-time buyer trying to get in. So Florida is standing at a crossroads. On one side, a system that funds local government, but makes homeowners feel like permanent renters. On the other, true ownership paired with real economic risk and tough budget decisions. This isn't a quiet policy tweak. It's a statewide referendum on what kind of ownership Florida believes in. And in 2026, voters will decide whether Florida becomes the first state in modern America to take that leap, or whether the risk is simply too high. Number 2, Ohio. Ohio didn't start with a governor. It started with a homeowner opening a letter. One year, her home's assessed value jumped by more than 50%. Not over a decade, not after renovations, in a single year. Her house didn't get bigger. Her neighborhood didn't suddenly turn into Beverly Hills. But her property tax bill exploded. And she did what millions of Americans do every year. She asked a simple question. How is this legal? That question spread. Neighbors started comparing bills, then neighborhoods, then entire counties. All across Ohio, homeowners were seeing the same thing. Sudden reassessments, massive increases, and tax bills completely disconnected from their actual ability to pay. Retirees on fixed incomes. Families who'd owned their homes for decades. People who followed every rule and still felt like the rules changed on them. So instead of waiting for politicians, they did something radical. They organized. No lobbyists, no political parties. No billionaires writing checks. Just regular homeowners forming a grassroots movement with one goal: eliminate property taxes entirely by amending the state constitution. Not reform, not relief, elimination. To even get on the ballot, they need over 400,000 verified signatures by a hard deadline. Miss it by one name and the effort dies. So volunteers are everywhere, outside grocery stores, knocking on doors, standing in the cold, asking strangers the same question. Are you tired of this too? As critics call the movement reckless. They warn of chaos. They argue there's no replacement plan for funding schools, police, or fire departments. But supporters push back with something deeper than spreadsheets. They say this isn't about budgets, it's about trust. Trust that if you own something, it can't be taken away just because you kept living in it. Trust that the government can't reassess your life's work out from under you in a single year. Ohio is proof that property tax anger isn't theoretical anymore. It's personal, it's emotional, and it's powerful enough to challenge an entire system from the bottom up. And that brings us to number 1. The only state where elimination isn't a protest, it's a funded plan. Number 1, North Dakota. North Dakota is different from every other state on this list because it already has something no one else does, the money. Sitting in the background is an 11.5 billion USD fund called the Legacy Fund, built entirely from oil and gas tax revenue. And this isn't money the state is scrambling to find. It's already there, growing every single year. In the most recent budget cycle alone, the fund generated hundreds of millions of dollars in earnings, not by spending the principal, just from investment returns. That's real cash that can be used without raising taxes or cutting services. And North Dakota's new governor saw the opening. In his first major address, he laid out what he calls a path to zero. Not a slogan, a timeline. Step 1, immediately increase the property tax credit for primary residences. Homeowners start getting over $1,000 back every year. Step 2, use legacy fund earnings to expand that credit further year after year. Step 3, as the fund grows, it absorbs more and more of the cost. The end goal? For a large portion of homeowners, especially retirees and middle-income families, property taxes effectively disappear. And within the next decade, most primary residents are on a clear path to zero. What makes this plan powerful is what it doesn't require. No sales tax hikes, no income tax increases, no cuts to police, fire, or schools. The funding mechanism already exists. That's why this matters so much. Last year, voters rejected a blanket property tax elimination proposal by a wide margin. Why? Because it had no plan, no funding, no roadmap. Just eliminate it and figure it out. This time is different. This time, the numbers are real, the money is real, and the timeline is real. For homeowners on fixed incomes, this isn't an abstract policy. It's the difference between staying in the house they worked their entire lives for, or being priced out by a tax bill that never stops. If any state is positioned to actually eliminate property taxes, not just talk about it, not just vote on it, but do it, it's North Dakota. And that brings us to the bigger question. So let's zoom out. 5 states, 5 very different strategies. Pennsylvania is trying to stop families from losing homes they already paid for. Texas is spending historic amounts of money, but still wrestling with a system it hasn't fully dismantled. Florida is putting the meaning of ownership itself on the ballot. Ohio is showing what happens when regular people decide they've had enough. And North Dakota is quietly building a path that actually adds up. What ties all of this together is something bigger than taxes. For decades, property tax was treated as inevitable, permanent, untouchable. That era is ending. Across the country, homeowners are asking a dangerous question for any system built on inertia. Why does owning something still come with a lifetime bill attached to it? Now, to be clear, this is not financial advice. This isn't a prediction. And none of these plans are guaranteed to succeed. Eliminating property taxes creates trade-offs, real ones. Budgets have to balance, services have to be funded. Every state will pay the price somewhere. But the conversation has changed. The question is no longer if property taxes can be eliminated. It's where, how, and who gets there first. So let me ask you, which state do you think actually crosses the finish line? Is it the grassroots pressure in Ohio, the political gamble in Florida, or the oil-funded math in North Dakota? Drop your take in the comments, I read them all. And if you want clear, no-hype breakdowns of housing money and the forces quietly reshaping your financial future, hit subscribe. Because the biggest shifts don't usually start with headlines. They start with bills showing up in the mailbox, and people finally decide they've had enough. I'll see you in the next one.